Right. So what we're going to talk about today is about how to get you started with Twitter, setting up the account, the terminology, useful ways you can find people to start following, and how to manage your account so you can build your own online community. Hopefully the webinar is going to be full of really useful hints and tips for you. And even if you do have a webinar Twitter account already, you're going to get some value from the session. So if you've not been to one of my Marketing My webinars before, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Catherine Salt, and I am a social media consultant, and I help a variety of businesses with their social media strategy, setup, and integration to their existing marketing plan. And in addition to that, I've produced a number of ebooks to help small businesses, and I also run these free webinars once a month. If you'd like to follow me, you can find me on Twitter at MarketMy. You can always check me out on Facebook at facebook.com/marketingmy. And for even more helpful, useful hints and tips, you can check out my blog at marketingmy.co.uk/blog. So it's known as a microblog. You've got 140 characters to make a comment, share a link, express an opinion, start a conversation, or even just talk about a bit about your business. Twitter's a lot more than saying what you have for breakfast. I think when it first started, you did get a lot of that. Since it's evolved, people have realized it's a really good resource for news and information and connecting with people who have similar interests. One of the things you get out of Twitter is the more you put in, the more you get out of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the basics on how you can get started and involved. Setting up an account is really simple, as you probably found out if you've already got one. You just need to go to the website twitter.com and follow the instructions. The only information you need to provide is your name, an email, and a password. So once you have a login and password, you will be taken to your home page of Twitter. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you my personal home page on the account. So what you have here is, the first thing you need to do is set up your personal profile. Now, as you can see there, I've got a clear headshot of me and then a bio. You have 160 characters to write this short biography. So try and make it an interesting representation of the sort of person you are, because that will really help you get the right sort of people to follow you. People see hundreds and hundreds of these biographies, so if yours isn't interesting, you may struggle to get people to follow you. As part of your profile, you can also add your location. That's another way of helping people find you, especially if you have a local business. In addition, you can add one URL. Now, as you can see on mine, I've used my website. However, you can use a link to your Facebook page, LinkedIn profile, or your blog. As you can see from mine, I have a specially designed background. The background really is just a simple PDF, which unfortunately means if you do have links, they're not actually clickable. However, it is a useful bit of space to add a bit more information about you and what you do. As part of the notes from this webinar, what I'll do is I will send you an article with all the different specifications you'll need for your profile image and for designing a Twitter background. On this profile page, you can see all the tweets that I have sent. Next, you can see any tweets. These are tweets I have favorited. Now, favoriting a tweet is very similar to bookmarking it for later reference. Then we have all the people that I am following. And then you can see my followers. Oh, hello, Andy. And then finally at the end we have this thing called lists. Lists is a great way of organizing your profile. Going back to the home page, you you can see, the majority of the screen is taken up by what is called a Twitter feed. These are all the tweets from the people that I follow. As I follow hundreds of people, this feed can move pretty quickly. So, you know, when you start following people, don't feel that you have to read every single tweet. You know, most people just skim through them, or you can utilize management tools to help organize the people that you'll follow. And I'll go through at the end of the presentation my sort of top recommended tools that I use. Now, the next thing you see, this called Market My. Now, this is actually the activity that relates to me. So before I go through that, I am going to go and tell you a little bit about some of the terminology that's used. Now, a tweet is your update. You have 140 characters, and all of the people that follow you will see this tweet. I would say my top tip regarding your tweets, if you want your tweets to be forwarded and shared, try and stick to 130 characters rather than 140, because that makes it easy for people and they don't have to edit them. Then you can see the next piece is a retweet. A retweet is when somebody forwards your tweet to their followers. All their followers can see this tweet. And the reason you can see it's a retweet because you can see that letters RT at the beginning of the message. Then we have mentions. There's two types of mentions really, and they both involve somebody using what we call your Twitter handle, which is your username with an @ tag in front of it. If someone tweets your username without that @ symbol, you're not going to be aware that you're mentioned. It won't show up on your pages. So as you can see there, we've got the first mention there from Lilac Bullock. Now, because she has used my @MarketMy at the beginning of her tweet, only Lilac and I can see that. And the people who follow Lilac and I. The next one is, you can see MarketMy occurs in the middle of the tweet, which means all of my followers and all of Jim's followers see that, whether or not they follow both of us. Lilac's tweet, because it mentions me at the beginning, it's only for people that follow both our accounts. Now, if you want to send a message that only the recipient can see, you need to send a direct message. You can only send direct messages if people are following you. As you can see from here, there's a little envelope icon near the bottom of Amy Schmittauer's biography. That's what you click to go through to send a direct message. So going back to Twitter, you can see here all the activity that people have mentioned you, retweeted, or follow you. The next tab is activity. Now, this is the activity that relates to the people that you follow. So if they have favorited, followed people, that all shows up there. And then the search is one of, I think, the most underutilized parts of Twitter. Search is a great way of finding people to follow, finding topics that are of interest to you, and also for finding questions that you can answer. Now, the great thing is, and you can see it here if you click on it, these are searches that I've saved, so I can pick these up every time. And you'll see in front of those, they've got this magic little hashtag. Hashtags contain no spaces or punctuation. They're a great way of labeling tweets, so other users can see tweets on the same topic. They're used to great effect at events like conferences or concerts, and the organizer of the event will tell attendees to add a particular hashtag to their tweets to gather opinions about the event or unite people at the same event. They can also be used, if you look at the right-hand side of the page where it says trends, to actually focus on specific issues. It's usually news, or oftentimes it's just a bit of fun. Now, if enough people use the same hashtag, it becomes a trend. And as part of this, your profile, you can actually select which part of the world you want to follow trends from. And in the UK, it's quite helpful if you have a business that is focused on a major city that you can see what's trending in London, Manchester, Birmingham. I don't think we've quite got enough people in Jersey to get ourselves up there yet, unfortunately. So once you've got yourself all set up, you need to start finding people to follow. So there are millions of people on Twitter, and there are good people to follow and there are not so good people to follow. Now, it's worth sharing with you what makes somebody worth following. Actually having a good, clear profile picture. If someone can't be bothered to add a profile picture, it doesn't say a lot. It doesn't say they're particularly committed. And the same with having a completed biography. It's only 160 characters, and it can really help you find people who have similar interests to you. Also check out their activity stream. You don't want to see too much broadcasting. This is where you see an account with lots of tweets going out, but no replies or mentions. This is the equivalent to inviting someone with a megaphone into your sitting room so they can shout their opinions at you. It's going to get tiring really, really fast. You also want someone who tweets on a regular basis. It's really hard to build a relationship with someone who tweets once every 3 months. And then finally, have a look at their following to followers ratio. We should be looking at sort of a 1-to-1. So if somebody has 100 followers, should be following about 100 people. If people are following many more people than they're following them, it could be an indicator that they're spam, or they're actually just not a very interesting person to tweet, or they just bombard you with promotional material or things about them. When you do decide to follow someone, I really recommend that you actually try and start a conversation. People are much more likely to follow you if you start to talk to them. However, be careful. Don't just use it as an opportunity to try and sell something off the back. When you do start following someone, and I wish I'd done this when I started, try and organize the people you follow to begin with. Like I said before, you can set up lists in Twitter. You can set them up by events you meet people at, by common interest, by location, and it's a really good way of managing your lists or managing the people you follow without having to get bombarded. There are loads of places you can find people to follow. In Twitter, they have who to follow suggestions. Like I said before, Twitter search is fantastic because they actually do options such as location, keywords, and one really cute little feature they have is you can follow people who are very positive or are negative. And obviously, I'm a big fan of just following people who are awfully nice, so I go for the positive. Lists. In addition to your lists, check out other people's. There are some they have probably done some of the work for you. So it's a great place you can find people with a common interest. There are also Twitter directories like Twello or TweetDirectory. And one of my favorite places for finding people is Formulists.com. Formulist has a free service where they will do searches for people that are on keywords, for people like you, for people who are similar to someone else you follow. And that's a great way of building up that list. they also update those for you on a regular basis. So again, so back to, you've got to make sure you're worth following. And I think one of the mistakes people make, and I see this quite a lot, is they set up a Twitter profile, they send out a tweet, and wait for something to happen. And unfortunately, it doesn't really quite work like that. You actually have to put in quite a lot of effort. The first tip, and the biggest tip I would have, is don't just talk about yourself. Think of Twitter a bit like a cocktail party. So you go into the cocktail party, the best way to network is to talk to as many different people as possible and to talk about them, not about you. There's nothing worse than getting stuck with a cocktail party bore who fences you into the corner and just talks about themselves and their work, and they try and sell you something. These people get avoided very quickly. So once you are on Twitter, start having conversations. The idea really is to try and send about 10 replies or retweets to every one tweet about yourself. This sounds like quite a lot, but you'll realize that because of the volume of people on Twitter, that's not very difficult at all. Also, mind your P's and Q's. I am sure that you have been very well brought up, but always say thank you to people who retweet you. Always reply to direct messages and messages. It sounds really obvious, but so many people seem to forget to do it. Don't tweet bomb. What a tweet bomb is bombarding your followers with 5 or 6 tweets all at the same time. You know, you may be short of time, but try not to put out a full day's worth of tweets out in one go. Spread them out. There's lots of tools to help you with your scheduling. And I think when it comes to actually getting your followers, it's much more important to have good quality followers than lots of followers. Influence is a buzzword in Twitter. And it's better to have deeper relationships than lots of relationships. There's loads of techniques for swelling your follower base. However, if you don't have a relationship with any of them, they're never going to pay attention to what you say. They aren't going to help you if you need anything, and they aren't going to share your stuff. You might as well just be talking in a bubble. So, you know, you've now got your account, you've got some followers, you're following some really interesting people. It's now very important to manage your account. And it can be so easy for Twitter to be a massive time suck. I think one way I avoid this is I actually use an old-fashioned kitchen timer, and I spend 10 minutes twice a day using some of my tools that I'm going to talk to you in a minute, and use that time to retweet people, reply to people, and schedule in some tweets to go out throughout the day. I'd also suggest you try and tweet quite regularly. Between size 6 and 10 times a day may sound excessive, but again, if you're doing a lot of @replies, mentions, and retweets, you know, it's quite easy to get up to those sort of numbers. Always try and think about adding value. If you don't add value, people aren't going to want to follow you. Think about, there is a saying that you're only as good as your last tweet. So just try and make sure every tweet you send is educational or interesting or entertaining. I mean, if you do get onto Twitter and you feel a bit lost for words, don't panic. You know, hang around, spend some time reading other people's tweets. And if you have something of value to add to the conversation, send a tweet out. So we're now going to go through my favorite Twitter tools. There seem to be hundreds of Twitter tools out there. But these are my top 6 I actually regularly use. Hootsuite. Hootsuite is a social media account manager. Now, the reason I like Hootsuite is because I have a number of different accounts. I have one for my marketing. I have one for my lingerie business. I also have some that I manage for clients. The great thing about Hootsuite as well is you can add your Facebook to it, personal page, as well as business pages, LinkedIn, Foursquare, which means that you have a dashboard where everything is in one place. In addition to that, Hootsuite allows you to schedule posts and shorten links. Now, if you want to share a URL on Twitter, you can imagine you're not going to get very far with your 140 characters. So Hootsuite has a link shortener in it. There's also another link shortener, which I probably should have added this, called Bitly, bit.ly, which will shorten links for you. And the great thing about that is you can also track how many people are opening them. That will really give you an indication on the effectiveness of your the content that you're sharing with people. Second of my favorite is Formulists. I mentioned this earlier for helping me to find interesting people to follow. In addition, it helps you set up lists in Twitter. You'll be able to identify who's following you and who's not following you. And in a similar way, Managed Flitter does that. But it uses a slightly different format, and you can check quite quickly how many people have got a biography, how many people have got a photo, how many people are inactive. I tend to unfollow people who have not been active for 3 months to sort my number ratio out. Buffer. Now, Buffer's quite a new application. It's very helpful. What it does is you can integrate it to your computer, and what it will do is if you see something you would like to tweet about, you can add it to Buffer, and Buffer will choose when it goes out by identifying times of the day that it will be most effective. So it takes the information from your Twitter activity on what gets shared, what gets forwarded, what gets replied to, and identifies key times of the day that you should be tweeting. And that's great. If you're short of time and you're only scheduling 10 minutes a day, you can load up things up to Buffer, and Buffer will schedule that in for you. What I would say is if you are using automation, you still need to monitor your account, because a lot of people will hopefully, they're going to reply and respond, and you need to be there. Why I like the scheduling is often when I am going through different websites and things, I see things, and if I don't buffer it then, I'll forget about it. Twitter's also great because you can add pictures to it using an account called TwitPic. There's lots of them around. I think they are very similar to each other. It's a case of personal preference. TwitPic's one, YFrog's another. You can also add Instagram. Again, it's up to you what you use. My final one that I like to recommend is CrowdBooster. The great thing about CrowdBooster is you can track your activity on Twitter to see how effective you're being. So it will identify times of the day that it's good for you to send tweets. It will show you how effective tweets have been. It will give you various charts and so on and so forth that really help you, if you're being serious about Twitter, what is the most effective times to tweet, content to tweet. So that is my short little webinar to hopefully get you started on Twitter if you haven't already, and hopefully you've had some useful tools there that you may not have used.